are out there that are just kind of flying by the seat of their pants and not making data-driven hard decisions with good data in mind. And that's why we do the survey for Ski Utah, for the resorts, for the destinations. Also allows us to monitor and track trends over time so we can see from year to year if there's certain markets that are up or down or who's growing. Maybe they're doing a marketing effort or an advertising push in a certain market and they want to see if that's having any blip on the screen. So we're able to track that through the survey research as well. Again, it achieves a level of precision that either confirms or refutes a gut feel. You might have a feel for what's going on at your resort, but it's good to document it, with hard facts behind it and hard data behind it to demonstrate that actually is what's going on at your resort or it's not. As I mentioned, we're able to compare to industry norms, so we're able to benchmark Snowbird against other resorts or other resorts in Utah or in the Rocky Mountains, how you guys are different or the same, or how you're performing differently in different markets or demographic constituencies. Again, just to improve the overall experience, as we talked about, with the satisfaction component to it. And ultimately, it's just become more competitive, more profitable as a ski resort. There are, the ski resorts in it to make money, right? At the end of the day, and employ us, and we all have jobs, and to turn a profit, attract more guests to the resort, ultimately. I mentioned the comparative performance data that we're collecting as part of this, the demographics, visitor spend, economic impact we talked about is a big piece of this, and they're assisting with Ski Utah's marketing and lobbying efforts with the state legislature. So research methods. This survey is primarily a face-to-face interview, although it's also designed to be administered in a self-administered format. And there's a number of different research methodologies out there as well. There's a lot of other data sources available to the resort that they're using their own revenue stream information, big data, information online, Google Analytics, things like that. There's really no substitute for that face-to-face interview that you're capturing somebody on the mountain and you're able to just corner them and ask them these questions that you just can't get that information any way else, or that high quality data anyway else. And that's why we do this. There's all kinds of different surveys. Each has pros and cons. I like to say there's no silver bullet, and that's why we try to come at it from a number of different angles and really try to have a complete package of data collection techniques that we're trying to get the highest quality data and information possible.
I have a question on
yeah,
that.
you bet.
On face-to-face, so to ask them the questions verbally versus having them read them and answer them themselves?
Either way, and this survey is designed to be conducted both ways, but at least the key here is you're selecting the respondent to take that survey, whether it's face-to-face or you're handing them the survey to self-administer.
In terms of validity, I think they're more valid when they do it themselves, as opposed to me asking what's your income?
Right. Well, how old are you for a woman?
Again, there's pros and cons to
We
that.
usually, talk to them first and develop a relationship with them, have them
Right.
build out,
And the income question itself, even if you're doing the survey itself, is just to say, can you please indicate from the list below the appropriate choice and let them do that, so you're not actually verbally asking them what their income range is. And that's what we recommend doing for the income question in particular.
No, maybe that's good, just for the more personal ones where you can kind of.
Yeah, you just show them the screen or show them the survey, and they can check,
Right.
it's this one, and they usually feel pretty comfortable with doing that versus telling you, right? Okay. So the type of methodology, there's a lot of considerations. The costs to collect this information, the staffing is obviously a big issue. You guys have great staff for conducting surveys. A lot of resorts don't, and that's why we were talking, we also hire some other people to help supplement conducting surveys at the resorts, just because we know that once it gets busy, which is actually when we want to do the most surveys, when the most people are at the resorts, the staff also have other duties that they have to attend to, and frequently surveying kind of falls to the bottom of the list. So we try to help out in that way by hiring people and paying them to go out and circulate rotate among the resorts and just to try to augment that sample that we're collecting.
Do you find the data compiled by people that are paid for it as opposed to people who work, is any different, or you wouldn't be able, you know?
By and large, not, as long as, and I'm gonna beat this to death tonight, but just the random selection process, as long as you're systematically selecting people, with a systematic random selection approach, and it's a counting procedure that we're gonna talk about on how you select people, theoretically, the results should be identical, it should be similar, it should be comparable.
Right.
Not only at your resort, but throughout Utah, throughout all resorts nationally, as long as everybody's doing it the same way, everything should be comparable.
You might need more information that you contract people to go to resorts and do surveys. Do you need help in Europe or?
I wish.
Yeah.
All right. I'll keep you in mind though. Okay. All right, so. So there's obviously different types of surveys, face-to-face interviews, which is primarily what this is based around, the survey program. There's mail and email surveys. We do a lot of those as well, post-visit surveys. It might be to lodging guests, it might be to season pass holders, could be to lesson or rental customers to your resort, and we do those all the time as well. Again, it helps supplement the whole body of knowledge that the resort is able to gain from doing those types of surveys. Focus groups, we do a lot of those as well, whether you're planning for improvements or things like that, or testing new marketing ideas. Those can be helpful. Department comment cards, which we don't recommend necessarily for hard statistical data because it's a self-selection process. People that fill those out, they're usually people that love you, or they have a big complaint. You're at both ends of the spectrum and you're kind of missing the middle population when you leave surveys out or rely on comment cards. Secret shopper type of programs. We also do a lot of kiosks and stationary surveys that is basically an iPad that's affixed to a kiosk with a nice sign. Those could be placed in restaurants or a rental shop or something like that. Again, it's not a substitute from the random statistically valid survey because it's a self-selection process unless you're directing people to that survey. But it's just, for resorts that don't have a lot of staff, it's just another way of collecting information if they have no other way to collect information pretty inexpensively, okay? And then obviously website surveys of online users. A lot of resorts will post a survey just on their website, a static survey, and try to drive traffic that way to the survey. So there's all kinds of ways that we're trying to collect information. Face-to-face interviews has a lot of advantages, including high cooperation rates. Usually there's not many refusals, particularly in a ski resort environment. Most people are pretty happy to tell you what they think and give them give you their opinions and cooperate. High response quality because you're able to control the survey and the flow of the questionnaire, and the questions, and what we're trying to get at as you go through the questionnaire, go through the survey. Survey issues can be more complex because you are able to guide the respondent in what we're trying to achieve for the survey, the result that we're trying to get from any particular question. And then it also allows for a follow-up on the part of the interviewer. You guys can probe for additional responses or clarify anything that might be uncertain, versus if they're filling it out, they might not be able to do that accurately. Disadvantages, obviously it's costly and it's time consuming because we have to have staff to be able to do that versus more, online surveys and things like that. So there's a cost to doing that, but again, it's a higher quality piece of data that we get as a result of doing intercept surveys. Introduces potentially interviewer bias and error. Each person, it's just human nature, kind of has their own way of doing things. So we try to minimize that by having the systematic approach that we're talking about tonight, so that everybody conducting the surveys the same way, we should be achieving the same end result versus 20 people doing it 20 different ways. We might have 20 different results, so we try to minimize that. And then, again, disadvantages, as you mentioned, it's more difficult to ask sensitive questions like household income or age. You know, people don't like you to ask them how old they are necessarily, so. Self-administered surveys, so again, the Ski Utah survey is both designed for you to do it person to person or handing out the paper form in the lodges and the on mountain restaurants. And the advantage to that is one person can select somebody at random using the counting process we have, select that person, move to the next table, have another survey going, and really have 4 or 5 surveys going at the same time, and kind of standing, you know, in a central location to be a helpful mediator if questions come up. And you're really banging out a lot of surveys pretty quickly that way, so we're getting more bang for our buck that way. Okay. Greater confidentiality. It goes back to your comment. The person taking the survey themselves, they can confidently fill out the survey, the income question, things like that. Has that advantage. Reduces several types of bias, such as interviewer bias that we just talked about. And you can have somewhat longer and more complex questions because they can actually take the time to read out the actual text versus you trying to explain it to them verbally. Disadvantages: if you as an interviewer don't select that respondent, the data isn't necessarily representative. So again, it's if you're leaving surveys out on the table just for anybody to take, you know, it's you're getting both ends of the spectrum. You're getting the haters and the huggers, I like to say. So try to avoid that at all costs. If the person's filling it out themselves, they may skip questions. You know, they might leave a whole block of questions blank, whereas if you're doing it face to face, at least you can go through, you're going through it